think our country is very divided, and we'd love to see it not be. And I think a big part of it is that when you have a very large group of people that is disenfranchised, that's going to cause division. And I think separating states maybe would help people get along better.
That's G.H. Merritt. She is the chairman of New Illinois. It's a political movement to try to bring about a new state in Illinois, to get away from the single state seeming to be governed by the state's largest city, Chicago, without any regard to the political leanings or philosophical differences of people in Southern Illinois. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. This has been an interesting thing to watch unfold over the past 7 years. And even before then, there have been discussions about shaking Illinois' political system up by creating new states. The idea here obviously is one of many, right? So you have New Illinois being one idea. You have Illinois separation is another group that's trying to look into splitting the state into two. You've also got what's going on over in Indiana, where apparently they're trying to set up a commission to address the couple of dozen counties in Illinois that have decided to hold non-binding referendum and approving those, voters overwhelmingly approving those in some areas, to support splitting the state in two. Then across the country, you've got portions of Oregon that want to break off and join another state. You've got Northern California that wants to split. Then you get President Donald Trump talking about bringing on new states like Greenland and Canada, while always you've had this back of the back of the room conversation of people wanting DC to be its own state, or places like Puerto Rico to be its own state, joining the United States. So this conversation is as old as the country is, right? I mean, we only started with 13 colonies turning into states, and then the expansion westward and all of the different states that were drawn and all the maps that were drawn. So we've been obviously with this map pretty solid since Hawaii came on, and there you go. That's how the lines are drawn. But some say that there's this divide in the country of rural versus urban. It's not even really political lines even. But this movement's been going on now for about 7 years, at least for New Illinois. So I talked with G.H. Merritt. She is the chairman of New Illinois, and she has a constitutional convention coming up. And this is from a conversation I had with her on Friday.
Well, April 4th and 5th, we're going to have our 7th session of a constitutional convention for New Illinois, and they're always really a blast. And this time, our keynote speaker Friday evening is going to be Sheila Weinberg from Truth in Accounting, and we're looking forward to really learning from her. And then on Saturday, we're going to have Representative Brad Halbrook, who has just recently filed the resolution for a new state. And then we'll also have Russ Clark, who's the treasurer of the Illinois Libertarian Party, and he's going to be talking about ballot access.
So again, that's coming up first weekend here of April. What is that, next week? So next weekend. What's the purpose of this convention? Is it to just bring like-minded people together, to network, to educate? What's the purpose of this convention? I asked G.H. Merritt.
Really, all of those things. It's wonderful to have that synergy of getting together with people who are part of our committees all over the state. We always have speakers that we learn from, stuff that'll be useful, like what I'm looking forward to with Sheila Weinberg is, okay, we see how Illinois is right now financially. What are the kind of things you can do to prevent that happening in a new state? And have suggestions for guardrails that you can put into a new state constitution. So that'll be really interesting. But we also do work there. We are, last November, we finished, after 2 years of work, the first draft of a constitution for the new state. And so what's been happening since then is work on the second draft. The people at the convention put in their 2 cents of what they thought was important. And so hopefully it's not going to take 2 years for the second draft, but it's definitely a working convention.
So the convention again coming up, we'll get details on that, but continuing my conversation with G.H. Merritt, the chairman of New Illinois, ask her about what I mentioned right off the front here. You've got not just what's happening in Illinois, you've got President Trump talking about bringing on Greenland and Canada, and the decades-old conversation about making D.C. its own state, or Puerto Rico, and then what's going on in Oregon and what's going on in California. And then you've got the issue with Indiana recently creating a commission where they're looking at the 20 some odd counties in southern Illinois that have said they want to split off from Illinois, and maybe making them absorbing those counties into Indiana, for example. So, I mean, that's another element to this conversation. I asked G.H. Merritt about all of that and what's really driving this.
You mean what's caused the momentum? I don't know. It's hard to narrow it down to one specific thing. I think our country is very divided, and we'd love to see it not be. And I think a big part of it is that when you have a very large group of people that is disenfranchised, that's going to cause division. And I think separating states maybe would help people get along better. I think too, I recently read an article, it talked about how the state lines were set in place 200 years ago, like Illinois became a state in 1818, when there weren't a whole lot of people living here at the time. And so you can't look at them as if they're the tablets that came down from Mount Sinai with Moses. It's as the population changes and many different things happen, you have to look at what is more appropriate.
It's interesting to kind of hear that perspective when it comes to, I mean, these lines are old. Things aren't the same as they were 200 years ago. There's some constitutional questions about, representation and whether or not a state like Illinois truly has true representation from people in, Cairo, for instance. Are they overpowered in how the state governs the people because of what's coming out of Chicago? But what about Indiana? I asked G.H. Merritt about that because, I mean, that's something that's right next door, and they've got a political movement over there that's seemingly trying to force this question onto the state of Illinois.
I was actually surprised that they brought this up because we are different from Oregon, that some of their counties are seeking to be part of Idaho. Oregon has like a normal level of state debt. Illinois has an extraordinary level of state debt. And so if another state wanted to take a chunk of Illinois, they'd have to take a proportional amount of that debt. Indiana runs about a $2 billion surplus. And so I thought, why would they even be interested in doing this? And I think that the real reason is that they want to get the attention of Governor Pritzker and Mayor Johnson, because their economy in Northwest Indiana is so tied into the economy of Chicago that if Chicago goes the way of Detroit and it is on, that is going to adversely affect them. And so they know that in order to activate this commission, it requires 5 commissioners from Illinois that Governor Pritzker will never appoint. So that's really what it is. I appreciated the fact that they saw us and heard us and empathized with the situation here. And it gave us an opportunity to draw some attention to our cause. We also went to testify. They invited us to come there. One of the reasons was they were looking at the 33 counties that have passed the advisory referendum, but that's a whole the project of another organization that we're glad they're doing it because it's very valuable information about what the will of the people is. But there are a total of 68 counties that actually have some sort of state split movement going on. So we wanted to let them know that it wasn't just the 33.
I'll tell you, anytime we do a story on this issue, it blows up. I mean, imagine this video right now, the segments from the daily live show is going to probably do pretty well on YouTube. People are interested in this, and it's the overall movement of, trying to balance out the political landscape when it comes to state governments and everything down the line, from taxing policy to education policy to parents' rights issues and Second Amendment issues and the cost of living and taxation and so on. But New Illinois, just one of those ideas in a kind of constellation of ideas on how to get this done. But they're holding a convention, and they've been working on a new Illinois Constitution, and they've been doing it for several years here.
New Illinois came into existence, it'll be 7 years ago this spring. And so I think what's really important, people look at this on the surface and think it's a Democrat versus Republican thing. That is not the way we see it at all. It is a urban versus rural, small town and suburban thing. And also, we try to emphasize that Illinois has always been divided, but there was kind of a balance before. But in 1964, the Supreme Court ruling Reynolds v. Sims came down, and it changed the way that state Senate districts were apportioned. And at the time that happened, one of our U.S. senators at that time was Everett Dirksen, and he warned that in any state that had a sizable city, the Reynolds v. Sims ruling was going to cause all power in that state to be absorbed into that city, and that the rural people would lose their voice. That's what's happened. And when you take a state that already has a history of corruption and you apply Reynolds v. Sims to that causes all the power to be concentrated like that, that opens the door for no accountability, opens the door for more corruption, opens the door for them to do the kind of gerrymandering that over the years, where Illinois receives an F from both Common Cause and the Princeton Gerrymandering Project. It's been their goal to silence the voices of their political opponents. So it's really not about party, but it's about the fact that the people of outstate Illinois don't really have a voice.
Again, that's G.H. Merritt. She is the chairman of New Illinois. They've got a convention coming up. She has those details.
It is going to be in Bloomington at the Chateau Hotel and Convention Center. It's going to be Friday evening, April 4th, and all day Saturday, April 5th.
We're going to do what we can to cover it and keep you posted as to what happens there, what the conversations are like, where they're planning on going in the months or years ahead, and just how long of a time this is going to take to happen, if there's any chance of it happening. It is Illinois in Focus Daily. Wake up with the live show each and every weekday morning by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell, or just come over to the Center Square on YouTube every weekday morning at 8 o'clock, and we'll be live. But also check out the segments and get the newsletter. Go to thecentersquare.com.